I'll never call off. Fourth quarter pressure. Back of the jersey. Double sevens. No matter how many times, I never get tired of that reference. Hall of Fame for dirt. We love you with a deep reverence.
Hi, this is Luka Doncic.
Hi, I'm Kyrie Irving.
And you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
They waiting on my fall off. I'll never call off. Fourth quarter pressure. Back of the jersey. Double sevens. No matter how many times, I never get tired of that reference. Hall of Fame for dirt. We love you with a deep reverence. Backcourt nasty. I wonder who gon' check him. Cuban did his thing when he went and got number 11. I still got his picture on my wall at 707. Feel synonymous with Kyrie, how we both train with aggression. Competition obsolete. Trying to breathe life into my dreams. I'm so tired of sleep. Still got some work from last season that was incomplete. So hungry for redemption. Thank my boys just might overeat. Like Luka with his 3 of them hit. My mic is prone to overheat. I pride myself the most. I'm 22 and my folks proud of me. I took the heart away since I was 10. Was no surprise to me. A step back, Mavs blowing up was no surprise to me. And I'm speaking honestly. 7.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Mavs Step Back Podcast. This is a very, very special edition of Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find both of us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dalton_Trigg and at Coach Drew 33. Guys, this is the first ever NBA Finals edition of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. This has been an unreal run. This podcast got started back in 2019. And I mean, obviously I've been with DallasBasketball.com longer than that. And we've both, been fans of the Mavs forever, going back way back. So this is just a surreal moment. The last time the Mavs were in the finals, we were both seniors in high school or close to it. And this is crazy. This is a great moment for the Mavs, a great moment for, the organization as a whole from top to bottom. Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd, who became the first guy to ever make it to the finals as a player and a coach of the same team, which is unbelievable. Luka Doncic, he won Western Conference Finals MVP. Both he and Kyrie were unbelievable in Game 5. So, the Mavs, as disappointing as that Game 4 was at American Airlines Center on Tuesday, Derek Lively came back. The energy was back. You knew Luka and Kyrie. We talked about it on the last pod. We said they're not going to come out and shoot as poorly as they did in Game 4. It just wasn't going to happen. These two guys are two of the best in the league, and it just wasn't going to happen. And sure enough, it didn't happen. Both of them, Luka and Kyrie, both had 36 points. They combined for 72 points in the final game of the Western Conference Finals. They blew out the Minnesota Timberwolves. We talked about it before we jumped on here. Thank God there was one game that didn't come down to the wire in this series, and it just so happened to be the closeout game in Minnesota. The Mavs win 124-103. Unbelievable stuff. We'll break it down bit by bit, but, what are you feeling right now, DJ?
Well, first of all, I apologize for the way that I sound. Newsflash, when you have small children, you catch everything that they have. And right now, a respiratory thing is going through our family, and it's absolutely killing me. So bear with me.
I don't have kids yet, but my wife has been teaching 4th grade for the past 6 or 7 years now. So I fully understand, what you're going through. It's the same thing. We catch all kinds of stuff. But anyway.
Yeah. So, like you said, Derek Lively's presence made an immediate impact. You know, the energy that he brings off the bench, the way that he's able to create extra possessions, the little things that he does on each play that may or may not reach the stat sheet. I mean, there's a reason why he has the best plus minus in a playoff since Manu Ginobili. I mean, there's a reason for that. Like, I know that's an overrated stat, but there is a reason for that.
Well, he might be first by the time, depending on how long the finals go and what his plus minus is in that series, he could pass Manu.
Well, I just know that kid's freaking tough as nails, both physically and mentally, because he took another big shot tonight and he stayed out there. So kudos to him. And I know he's still going through a lot, with the loss of his mother and everything. So I've been nothing but impressed with Derek Lively. And another interesting fact about tonight is it's one of maybe two nights where we've actually seen the Mavs play a little bit above their level in terms of offensive efficiency.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that because it seems like every other night we're getting a team's best shot. So it was nice to see us just completely overpower the Timberwolves. And make no mistake about this. This was a statement game. And it wasn't just making a statement to the league. It was making a statement to the media and everyone else that has ever doubted them. And lo and behold, even after that impressive win, they were still talking about the Boston Celtics. And quite frankly, I'm just ready for this finals to get going so they can shut up, because I don't think it's going to go the way that these people anticipate. I really don't.
Yeah, I really – and look, there were already mixed reactions on the TNT postgame show because, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, they both picked the Celtics. Shaq, he is all in on the Mavs. He thinks the Mavs are going to end up pulling it off. And look, obviously, we're slightly biased at heart, but we also know what we see with our eyes. And this Mavs team is not the same team that the Celtics faced during the regular season. And I know the Mavs played the Celtics one time after the trade deadline, but still, it's not the same team. That was before Jason Kidd made Derrick Jones Jr. and Daniel Gafford permanent starters.
Yep.
That was before, Gafford only played 6 minutes in that game against Boston. You had Tim Hardaway Jr. playing 20 minutes. Tim Hardaway Jr. was a DMP coach's decision for the last 2 or 3 games of this Western Conference Finals.
Really good news.
Jaden Hardy has completely taken over the THJ role, which is what we've been calling for a long time now. It's great to see, Hardy jump out and take advantage of his opportunity. It's just not the same team. This team has broken out, and they have reached their full potential, and they're coming in hot. For the Boston Celtics, as good as the Celtics are, and they are great. I mean, they are a great team. As good as the Celtics are, they have not been challenged this postseason in the same way that the Mavs have been challenged.
No.
Their road to the NBA Finals was a cakewalk in comparison to what the Mavs have done, especially considering that Luka was hobbled for the first 2 rounds. And he progressively got better throughout this series, it seemed like. And now he gets a full week of rest before the NBA Finals starts. So you're going to have Luka, Kyrie, and the rest of the guys fully healthy and fully energized going into this series. And that in itself is going to be a huge win and a huge boost for their chances to win their second championship in franchise history. So I'm super excited. PJ Washington specifically, I think he's going to be a key factor in these NBA Finals. The last time the Mavs and Celtics played, he had a pretty good game. He had like 17 points, I think. He started out hot. He ended the game cold, but by the time he was cold anyway, that game kind of got out of hand after it was only a 7-point deficit at halftime. So I expect PJ Washington to show up. He was one of the guys we said he wasn't going to have an offer from 3 again and he came out and had 12 points in Game 5, shot 4 of 9 overall, hit 2 of his 5 threes, had 7 rebounds and 2 assists. So PJ Washington did his thing. He played great defense. Let me see here. What else was it? Oh yeah, the efficiency for Luka and Kyrie. It's great that they both scored 36, but the way they scored was just incredible. They both hit 14 shots. Luka was 14 of 22 overall. Kyrie 14 of 27 overall. Luka came out in this Game 5, and it was almost a carbon copy of that Phoenix Suns Game 7 in 2022. He just had it, and it's funny because they were wearing the same white uniforms that they were wearing in that Game 7 too. But on the road, chance to eliminate your opponent. There's just something about that moment that Luka just thrives in, and you can just tell he just has a little bit extra. And that's another thing that I look forward to in these finals, because that Boston crowd is going to be hostile. They are going to be hostile, especially toward Kyrie. But I imagine they'll be hostile toward Luka too, because there's been that whole Luka versus Tatum debate over the last couple of years, which isn't really a debate at all. But that's been a narrative. You've got the Kyrie narrative. You've got the Kristaps Porzingis playing against the Mavs narrative. All this stuff that can create a toxic environment in Boston, I think Luka is going to thrive on, just like we saw in Minnesota. And he came out in Game 5 and put his foot on the Timberwolves' throats in the first half. He had, in the first quarter alone, DJ, he scored 20 of his 36 points. He outscored the Timberwolves by himself. It was 20-19 Luka versus the Timberwolves in the first quarter. just unbelievable stuff from him. The killer instinct he shows is unbelievable.
Yeah, his performance in the first quarter, honestly, it didn't even seem real. He was hitting guarded logo threes, step backs. The Wolves tried to push the pick and roll out to about half court to attempt to, I guess, make him give up the ball sooner. But all that did was create more space under the pick and roll. And so Luka would either, hit the roll man or he'd snake it. And one time in that first quarter, he snaked it and then stepped back and drilled a three. And I was like, oh, it's one of those. I turned to my wife and I was like, yeah, this is over. If he's going to be doing this is not going to last long. So.
Yeah, when Luka is confidently pulling up from that, not quite the logo, but like in between the top of the 3-point line and the logo, that little midsection, and confidently knocking some of those down, you're in for a long evening, because he was doing it. And even Anthony Edwards, I saw a little bit of his, and I'm going to give Anthony Edwards his flowers. I know he wasn't good efficiency wise in these Western Conference Finals, but for a 22-year-old with his physical attributes, and it felt like he was him and Cat, surprisingly, but it felt like, especially Anthony Edwards, he was like the only Timberwolf who didn't give up in this game. The Mavs were up 36 in the fourth quarter, I believe, and there was a moment there where I think Ant hit 3 consecutive threes, and it was funny because it was kind of like a remake of that meme from the Suns Game 7. Oh, Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the deficit to 30. And it was kind of like that. It was kind of like that situation for Ant. He hit those big threes. Well, not big threes, but he hit those 3 consecutive threes, and it was kind of the same thing. Oh, Anthony Edwards cuts the deficit to 27. So, but I got to give him his flowers. He's great. He's only 22 years old. Future very, very bright. But like we talked about before this series started, or really after Game 1 when he was gassed and having to get oxygen, it's a different animal when you make it this far for the first time. And we saw that with Luka in 2022. Now, obviously the Mavs, Luka had a lot more on his shoulders then because the Mavs didn't have the roster they have now. But, when you get this deep into the playoffs and you're nearing that 100-game mark of the season, it gets tough. So, we saw him, not be as good as he was in the second round against the Nuggets. So it was fun, to see what Ant can do. But like I said, this series turned out exactly how we thought it would. The Mavs, they Luka and Kyrie and their experience, especially in clutch situations, that was the biggest difference. That's what we thought the biggest difference would be. That's what ended up happening. For the most part, the Mavs dominated the points in the paint and the boards in this series. In Game 5, they won the rebounding battle again, which we've said from the beginning is so key. 45-41 in Game 5. They hit 15 of their 34 three-point attempts, so 44% on the night. That was great.
It's about time we had one of those nights.
Points in the paint, they barely edged them out in this one, 48-46, but they didn't have to blow them out in that department because the threes were falling. Mm-hmm. It was great. And look, the Mavs, Derek Lively has a personal sweep in the Western Conference Finals. The Timberwolves could not beat the Mavs when Derek Lively played. They tried their best to get him out of there. The knee in the back of the head in Game 3. He missed Game 4. He came back for Game 5. Who was it? It was Rudy Gobert in the first quarter, I believe. He kind of swiped at Lively's neck. Yep. It was a cheap shot. Like I'm surprised that Gobert didn't get more than just a technical for what he did, but he swiped at the back of his neck. Lively took or he was opposed to that and got up in his face. There was a double tech situation. And then in the second quarter, Naz Reid, Lively was going up for a transition. He was looking like a transition dunk or layup, and Naz Reid just grabbed the back of his neck, like didn't even go for the ball. And I love Naz Reid, but that was a dirty play.
That was so petty.
It was dirty. It could have really messed Lively up. So as much as I love Naz Reid, that was I did not like that at all. I thought that was pretty cheap on his end, but he ended up getting a flagrant one, and Lively, he ended up being fine throughout the rest of the game. So dodged a bullet there, but that was one thing that really upset me in that Game 5. But all's well that ends well.
I'll tell you this about Lively. He's one of those guys that you love to have on your team, but you absolutely hate to play against. And the way that he plays, he gets under people's skin. And I'm not saying that Lively, talks or anything like that. I'm talking about the level of physicality that he brings, how hard he plays. And I mean, he plays 110% the entire game. He's going after every loose ball. Every 50-50 ball is his. And he's going to do his absolute damnedest to make sure that's the case. And that rubs people the wrong way sometimes, especially in high-stakes games, specifically elimination games. And, people are prone to making mental mistakes. And I think that that's what we saw out of Naz Reid tonight. I think that Gobert, that's just who Gobert is. I don't have
I
think that was a mental mistake by Naz Reid. But it's hard to match someone like Lively's intensity just because it never stops. It never ends. And to top it all off, he's 7'1" and can move like a guard. So that doesn't help matters any.
I just can't imagine what's going to happen because, we've seen it in practice. We've seen it, in pregame warm-ups. We saw it as early as his pro day before he ever even made it to the Mavs. The guy can shoot threes.
Yeah.
He's
really going to piss people off.
Especially corner threes. If he starts doing that and stretching the floor, the Mavs are going to have a third superstar on their hands.
I'm going to tell you what, he would be the way if his jump shot ever emerges, they'll be able to run some Spain pick and roll actions with him like they do with Maxey. And he will be incredibly effective in that, or just even some simple roll and replace sets. He would be incredibly effective in that because he can shoot the ball. And I'm hoping, we probably won't see it in these finals, but I'm hoping that by next year he will have earned the right to take those shots from the coaching staff. The reality is, as a post player, you have to earn the right to take those shots, and he just hasn't yet. I guess I don't know. I haven't been to practice, so I couldn't tell you. But when he does earn the right to do that, watch out, because the Tyson Chandler comparisons are going to go out the window, and we're going to be looking at something completely different whenever it comes to Derek Lively's offensive game. He isn't just a dunker. He's actually got a lot of raw potential to him. It'll be interesting to see how he develops.
Yeah, and I mean, look, to be quite honest, the Mavs don't really need him to do that right now.
No.
But later down the line, like say when Victor Wembanyama reaches his full potential, and you need to draw him away from the basket, that's something that you can keep him honest with. He can be like the new Maxi Kleber with a better stroke. So
right, a taller Maxi Kleber. And that's the thing. You could see Derek Lively in some small ball situations if he is able to develop a handle and develop a jumper. And I'm telling you, it's there. If you go back and you look at his high school film, you didn't really see it at Duke, and you haven't really seen it now. But if you go back and you look at his high school film, he does things with the basketball that make you go, So, it's there. It just hasn't surfaced yet. It isn't leveled up enough to be used at this level yet, but it's coming. And whenever it does, if you think we're good right now, it'll be a completely new scenario for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. So, look, Lively has been great. He posted this picture after the game that I'm trying to upload as we speak. Give me just a second, and I'll have that up. You mentioned that, one of the things that are the extra motivation for him, and here it is. He posted this on Instagram after the game saying, just keep watching from above. So, I mean, that's the good stuff, man. That's
what it's all about right there.
I get chills just looking at that. That's incredible. So I can't be happier for Derek Lively specifically. And I'm glad that, he didn't have a more serious injury because that knee he took from Cat in game 3 to the back of the head when he was falling out, that was scary. That could have been really bad.
I thought it was concussion, and I thought he was going to be out for the rest of the series. I really did. That concussion protocol stuff, that is nothing to mess with. I will tell you that right now. And it's different for each individual. You could be out for 2 weeks. You could be out for a long, long time. It depends on how long you're having symptoms. And I've seen it go both ways. And we're just very fortunate.
Yeah,
I'll say that. We're very fortunate.
Look, we have several more things to cover here before we, take off and go into the weekend. Very happy. Looking forward to the final. I'm finalizing my Boston plans tomorrow, so that's gonna be pretty cool. So, I can't wait for that, get that rolling. But before we jump into the second half of this pod, it's that time again. I gotta tell you about Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's very easy to use. Whether it's Mavs players or other NBA players or from other sports. It doesn't have to be basketball, but I personally like using it for NBA stuff, and especially Mavs, because that's my specialty. I feel like I have a good chance of getting some of those over-unders on Prize Picks. But if you want to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit, use our promo code STEPBACK, and they will match up to $100. So, for example, if you use our promo code and you deposit up to, say, the full amount, $100, you'll have $200 in your account to use however you want to use it. So it's a great time to do it. NBA Finals coming up. Game 1 will be on next Thursday, June 6th. And then, a couple extra days in between games there. Game 2 will be on June 9th. But you can go in there and see what the over-unders are for, Luka, Kyrie, PJ, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, all those guys. So if you want to get in on the action and, watch the Mavs, and it's already going to be fun watching the Mavs in the NBA Finals. But if you want to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, be sure to go get the Prize Picks app. and use our promo code STEPBACK to get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. DJ, now we got to talk about a few other things here, specifically with the Boston Celtics. Bless you. Specifically with the Boston Celtics. We did this for the last couple series, for the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. We talked about, guys we were kind of concerned about heading into that series. And Naz Reid, bless you again. Naz Reid and Mike Conley were two guys that I was personally worried about. The Mavs found a way to neutralize Mike Conley, so that was great. And then Naz Reid, he didn't really have much of an impact, outside of that. He peaked in game 2 of this series. That's when he went 7 of 9 from 3, and he missed the most important one at the buzzer, and the Mavs got the win. So that's the two guys I was worried about in the Timberwolves series. The Mavs handled them fine, in my opinion, and that's why they won this series so quickly. So now going into the Celtics series, I have my take on this, but who are a couple guys that you're looking at it and it's like, okay, I'm kind of worried about these guys.
The most obvious one to me is Jaylen Brown.
I agree. That's one of my guys.
He's just an offensive dynamo. He can score at will in a variety of ways. I mean, you talk about 3-level scorers. He is the epitome of a 3-level scorer. He can literally do it all. And at times he has carried that Celtics team offensively, specifically whenever their quote-unquote superstar isn't producing at a superstar level. In my opinion, he is the best player on that team on both ends of the floor, and he's the one who concerns me the most. Now, the second one you may disagree with me with, but just bear with me, is Derek White. Derek White has the potential to also carry them offensively, specifically with his three-point shooting. But what is so interesting about Derek White is his ability on the defensive end of the ball. You could stick him on Luka or Kyrie, and I think he would do a pretty decent job. He leads all guards in blocked shots, I think, in the playoffs. And for good reason. He's extremely long and he's extremely athletic, and he's got a really high defensive IQ. But he's also on the offensive end part of what makes that team run. Like, everyone talks about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but the people who make that thing what it is, the way they make it run the way it is both Derek White and Drew Holiday. Now, Drew Holiday isn't one of my big two, obviously, but Drew is still very good, especially on the defensive end. They play him off ball a lot, which I think is pretty interesting. I think they like Derek White's decision-making a little bit better, and I can see that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I mean, we haven't really seen these guys respond to true adversity yet. Yeah, they've been down in games, but how are they going to respond whenever they get truly hit in the mouth and lose a game? Because there's no way they sweep us. There's no way. I don't care what any of these quote-unquote experts say. This is going to be a very close series, in my opinion. And it's all going to come down to, number one, if we can keep Boston from making a serious impact from three. B, keep Boston from getting extra possessions off of long rebounds. Not necessarily just straight up kill us on the glass because we have a size advantage.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is because they shoot so many threes and because that is a point of emphasis for them, they're going to have a bunch of long rebounds. And so our guards, 1 through 5, everybody is going to have to box out. It's got to be it's got to be a sign to everyone on the team. Everyone has to box out because there's a chance that you're going to have an extremely long rebound, and we cannot afford to give them extra chances because they are extremely efficient from the three-point line.
Yeah.
Defensively, they've always been solid throughout the year. I mean, I forget what they were ranked defensively, but I think it was pretty high.
The Timberwolves were the number one, the number one team defensively. Let me see. Let me go to You continue on with your thoughts. I'll have that by the time you get done talking about their defense.
But the thing about it is, the majority of their games were played in the Eastern Conference. And I know it's a tired analogy saying that the Western Conference is so much better than the Eastern Conference, but it is. And they haven't had to face the level of competition that the Mavs have. So, my feelings is this. If we can torch the Timberwolves, who I think have a much higher defensive potential than the Boston Celtics, just based off length, mobility, and athleticism alone, which are the three key things that go into good defense, is how much length you have, how much athleticism you have, and how mobile everybody is. If we could do to the Timberwolves what we did this series, I really don't see any way we don't handle the Celtics. I really don't. And I think a huge issue for the Celtics in dealing with us is going to be our bigs. I don't think they're ready for that level of physicality.
I agree. And I have an interesting take here in a second on the bigs.
I don't know that they're going to be able to keep us off the glass. I don't know if that they're going to be able to guard us in the pick and roll. Because if you thought that Rudy Gobert was slow, what's Al Horford going to do? Okay, I love Al, but Al doesn't. I don't think Al moves as well as Rudy does. He's definitely not big.
Definitely not now. At one time you could have made an argument for it, I think. But
yeah, at one time,
Al Horford is still incredible, for his age. But I do agree. I think you go from playing the Defensive Player of the Year, to Al Horford and KP, who's coming off what was it that he had? It was calf strain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But a couple of things to add to your points here. So in the regular season, the top 5 defenses, Miami was number 5, OKC was number 4, Orlando Magic number 3, Boston Celtics number 2, and then by a wide margin, the Minnesota Timberwolves were number 1. So the Mavs have already eliminated the OKC Thunder, the 4th best defense in 6 games, with a hobbled Luka, mind you. And that now they've, defeated the top defense in the league in the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals. Just, I agree, man. I don't think the Mavs, and again, I know people are, if outsiders listening to this podcast are gonna, say, that's the bias talking. I don't think people outside of Mavs people have really watched the Mavs over the last several months. This is a different team. Like, you don't luck your way into the NBA Finals.
No.
This is
especially not in the Western Conference.
This is a worthy title contender, and they have the best player in the series. You can't ask for anything else. Now, I know LeBron James has been to the finals, a decade's worth of NBA finals, and he was the best player in every one of those series, and he only has 4 rings to show for it. But he didn't have the supporting cast that Luka has going into these NBA finals. So, you have the best player in the finals. You have a stellar second option in Kyrie Irving, who has an extra motivating factor.
I was about to say, he might be the second best player in the finals just because of his motivation. I know he played it cool in that post-game interview where they asked him about Boston or whatever, but we know who Kyrie is.
Oh, it.
If he got up for some chirping from Anthony Edwards, what do you think he's going to do to Boston?
He's going to be trying to get his lick back in this series, and it's going to be incredible. Now
he's going to be in kill mode. He's going to be in absolute kill mode for at least the first. That first game is going to be absolutely nuts.
It's going to be crazy.
That's going to be primetime cinema. Kyrie might go for 70. Kyrie might wave Luka off and just this one's mine.
Well, I hope he doesn't, expend all that energy at once, because we got to get 4 wins to finish this thing off. But I agree. I mean, he can play it off all he wants to. This would be the cherry on top of the sundae for for Kyrie Irving to not, it's already gratifying to have this run that he's had and to prove all the naysayers wrong, who counted this duo out. They counted out Luka and Kyrie after how last season ended. And to now be in the NBA Finals and for Luka and Kyrie to be clicking on all cylinders, and both guys have picked up the intensity defensively. It's been great to see. And, I think he's going to be highly motivated. But I want to go back to my players that I'm kind of keeping an eye on in the series. And I did have two, and one of them is the same as yours. It's Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown scares the crap out of me, honestly. I mean, he
scares the crap out of everybody.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing two-way player.
He's a
very,
dog.
very underrated. Like Jason Tatum gets like most of the spotlight and the headlines and all that stuff. I was so happy just for Jaylen Brown as an individual that, he was recognized as the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, because, he is that guy. He is very good, and he's shown it against the Mavs in the past. So, I mean, that goes without saying. Jaylen Brown is that guy, and the Mavs are going to have a tough time neutralizing his impact. Now, the other thing that's interesting to me is the big situation, Kristaps Porzingis.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like, and I may regret saying this, this might be I might end up on cold takes or whatever on Twitter by saying this, but freezing cold takes is that account. But I feel like Kristaps Porzingis coming back from an extended absence benefits the Mavs more than if he didn't play and the Celtics throw in Xavier Tillman into the lineup, because Tillman, when he was with the Grizzlies, he used to give the Mavs fits. Like he's one of those high, he's like, he obviously Lively is much better than Xavier Tillman, but Tillman, he's one of those guys that gives you 110%. He's one of those guys that's diving on the floor, trying to block every shot, all that stuff. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a rusty Porzingis coming in there and, kind of soaking up all those minutes instead of Tillman getting some run. So that's what I'm looking at. I think I'm with you. I think the Mavs bigs are going to kind of shock the Celtics with how physical they have been throughout this postseason. Now, obviously, you have to take into consideration that Boston's bigs can stretch the floor. Al Horford and Porzingis can both shoot threes. Gafford and Lively are not going to shoot threes. So that's something you have to think about. That you got to get your defensive matchups to where you don't want those two guys drawing Gafford or Lively out of the paint. You got to have it set up. And look, Jason Kidd has proven that if you give him the defensive weapons, he can scheme a defense. He can get guys in the right place. So they'll have to have it set up to where, they match up in a certain way to where it keeps Lively or Gafford patrolling the paint while also keeping somebody out on the perimeter. Because, one thing I think that's going to change from the Western Conference Finals to the NBA Finals for the Mavs defensively is, this series they were kind of, especially early in the series, the Mavs were willing to give up open threes, especially from like the corners.
Do that.
And there were several times even in this game 5 where they left Kyle Anderson wide open from three, because it's just like, what he shoots 31, 32% from three. So you can't do that against the Celtics. So you're gonna have to guard the perimeter, and if you give up a mid-range shot or something going close to – this is a series where if you give up a 2 instead of a 3, you win. You're going to win that possession. It's better than giving up the 3. You can't let the threes kill you in these NBA Finals, and I'm sure Kidd will have his team fully prepared for that scenario.
Well, the Celtics, they run that 5-out stuff, but who else ran 5-out that we actually did a pretty decent job of whenever we played against them was the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it's
Yep.
honestly a very similar situation because, Chet can stretch the floor arguably better than either Kristaps or Al, in my opinion. Chet's a legit shooter. Now, granted, he didn't have the supporting cast that the Celtics have all around him, but I think that the defensive schematics that you're going to see in this game are going to be very similar to what you saw against Oklahoma City. It would not surprise me at all if, bear with me, this might get some people upset, but Jason Tatum has actually statistically been their worst shooter out of all their starters. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I think that's right. From three.
And it's been awful. In fact, there was a point, I don't know if this is still true, but there was a point where he was the worst three-point shooter in the playoffs. I think Cat may have overtaken it. But still, that's the realm that we're talking about here. So I'm not saying don't guard Tatum. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is we can probably cheat off of Tatum a little bit more than we can anyone else. And with Lively, that's really all you need to do is just have him cheat off and have him patrol the paint a little bit. Granted, you might get burned, and if Tatum gets hot, then we're going to have to make an adjustment. But I think that that's what you look to do. If you have to have someone in the paint and you have to, give up something, give their worst shooter the look. And so far, that's been Tatum.
Yeah. And look, and if he starts killing you, then you may then you make that adjustment and you do something different. But I agree. Now I don't know. I just think it's gonna be a situation where they're just gonna have to give up some stuff inside the 3-point line. I just don't think that. I mean, I get it. I know Tatum hasn't had a good 3-point shooting playoffs, but you got to wonder, is there going to be a regression to the mean situation? Is he finally going to start nailing threes in the finals after not nailing threes, through the first 3 rounds? But
he would do that against us. That's kind of our luck.
Yeah. But then you have the other flip side of the coin where the Celtics haven't played a defense as stout as the Mavs throughout these playoffs. Like I said, the Timberwolves, they had the number 1 defense in the league for the entire regular season, but from February 6th or 7th through the end of the year, it was the Mavs. The Mavs had the number 1 defense in the league. So, that'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. And I'm very excited for this series, man. This is what we were, hoping for. Me personally, I was hoping for it because, I think I've mentioned this on the pod before, but, my wife and I, we went to Dirk's Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts last summer, and it was amazing. It was a 72-hour turnaround trip, so it was very rushed, was very tired when we got back home, but the day after the Hall of Fame thing, we got to we drove almost an hour. I think it was almost an hour drive and went to Rhode Island, and it was incredible. And we were just thinking man, if the Celtics end up playing the Mavs in the finals, maybe we can, double dip this thing. And because, she's a school teacher and she's out for the summer now. And look at here. Now the Mavs are playing the Celtics in the finals. And guess what? Boston is really close to Rhode Island. So we're going to try to take full advantage of this rare opportunity that we have. So I'm excited. I think the Mavs have more of a chance than what the national media is going to give them. And I think, this thing could, I don't know. I could see it swinging either way. I could see it going either way. It's going to come down to the role players, I think, because, in the Timberwolves series, the Mavs had the 2 best players in Luka and Kyrie. In this series, it'll be Luka and Kyrie versus Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And obviously that'll be a big duo matchup that we'll keep an eye on. But how's PJ Washington going to play versus how Derek White plays? How is Lively and Gafford going to play versus Porzingis and Horford? Derek Jones Jr., can he knock down some threes like he has throughout the playoffs? And obviously his athleticism is going to play a huge factor in this series too. But, Derek Jones Jr. being able to hit some threes, that really, takes the lid off of it for the Mavs at times. So Jaden Hardy, can Jaden Hardy have an impact in the NBA Finals? He was unbelievable in the Western.
Interesting tweet about him. So I can't remember who it was, but he said that Jaden Hardy is going to win a game in these finals. And I thought that was a pretty interesting prediction. So hopefully it happens. I think that'd be cool.
I think that might have been Jamal Crawford that tweeted that.
Maybe so. I'll see if I can find it after this. But
well, look, it's kind of the same situation that we've talked about with Tim Hardaway Jr. Over the course of not just the playoffs, but the regular season too. Tim Hardaway Jr., when he was getting minutes, he's a guy that can win you a game if he goes on heater. Now, Hardy is a little bit, he can win you a game, but it feels like he's more consistent. He's not as much of a heater guy as Tim Hardaway Jr. is. He can drive to the rim. He can finish with contact. He's playing pretty solid defense.
Yeah, he plays with more energy than Tim does. Like whenever I made that comparison earlier, I missed, honestly, because he brings way more energy, way more enthusiasm when he's on the floor. He just gets a little out of control sometimes, but that's what you're going to get with these young guys who are going 110 miles an hour. But he's definitely a spark plug, and his teammates really enjoy playing with him. Yeah.
Well, I just can't stress enough how excited I am for this. We're not going to get into too much of the X's and O's and the matchups we want to see and stuff like that, because we have a full week to prepare for these NBA Finals, and we're going to have a couple of things going on here over the next several days. So we have a lot to talk about. I don't want to do it all on this one podcast. We're going to spread it out a little bit. But DJ, any final thoughts from the Mavs being Western Conference champions before we take off here?
To go from where we were last year to where we are this year has been just an insane turnaround. Probably the best turnaround I've ever seen in professional sports. And that could be drastic. I could be, overdoing it because
I don't think you are.
But in my opinion, I think it's the greatest turnaround in professional sports. To go from being a lottery team to the NBA Finals in 1 year, and to do it by not necessarily assembling a super team, but by building a team. I think that there's some significance to that. And to do it sustainably, to where this isn't the end. If we don't win it this year, we're still built for the future, but we are also built for right now. And I really like our chances right now.
Starting to feel like that 2011 year, man. Yeah. The time is now.
And I'll tell you this team is better than that 2011 team.
I agree.
Tell you that we are more talented, we are deeper, we are bigger, we're younger, we're way younger. And it all goes back to Nico Harrison and the job that he did this past season. And even though he didn't win Executive of the Year, he's my Executive of the Year, and he ought to be everyone's Executive of the Year after witnessing what has gone down. So hats off to him. Couldn't have done a better job. Literally could not have done a better job. And the most impressive part of it all was whenever, the Grant Williams thing didn't work out, and instead of pouting about it, he pivoted and turned Grant Williams into something that helped us make the finals.
Yep. So, unbelievable. All of this started, less than 12 months ago is where, this roster reconstruction started. And it started with the draft. As soon as the finals were over, Mavs had the draft. that worldwide wob or whatever on NBA Twitter. He posted a screenshot of the box score of the final game for the Mavs last season, where the San Antonio Spurs beat the Mavs 138-117 in a Tank Fest game where Theo Pinson was playing and got a triple-double.
I remember that, yeah.
He posted that box score screenshot and was just like, this could be the most significant day in the Mavs franchise history if they end up winning, the title against the Celtics, these next few weeks. So that was crazy. That sparked the Mavs having, they kept their pick. They didn't have to give it to the Knicks. It turned into not only Derek Lively, they were going to draft Lively at 10 no matter what, but they found a way to trade down with OKC and got Omax, who could be a factor going forward, not this season, obviously, but in the seasons going forward. He was another first-round pick they got. OKC helped the Mavs out there. They helped the Mavs out by trading a first-round pick for a pick swap that helped the Mavs get Daniel Gafford, which, as a domino effect, kind of helped the Mavs get PJ Washington too, because they didn't have to use their other pick, and they were able to send that one to Charlotte. It's crazy, and I mean, like you said, there's no use in crying over spilled milk with how the Grant Williams situation went. But Nico Harrison, he made the most out of it, and not just Nico Harrison, but Michael Finley, who is a prominent voice in that Mavs front office. You had the transfer of power of ownership in this season too in December, with Mark Cuban selling his majority stake to Patrick Dumont. To the Adelson family, and Patrick Dumont is the new governor now. So you had all that going on. You had the guy from the Utah Jazz, Dennis Lindsey, who was a big part of, those formative years with the Utah Jazz, where they were a playoff team and they assembled, a really good roster. And, he came in as a front office advisor, and I think he had a say in some of this stuff too. And then Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison said it in his, when he was talking during the trophy ceremony in Minnesota tonight. Jason Kidd has been key to establishing this culture that the Mavs have. Like, you can bring in all the talent in the world, but if you can't get the guys to buy in to the vision, then you're just wasting your time. Yep. And Jason Kidd has been able to get every guy on this roster to buy in. There's no pouting. There's no, Christian Wood situation like last year. It's every guy top to bottom is completely bought in. Even Tim Hardaway Jr., who had received 2 consecutive, maybe he didn't play very many minutes in game 2, but still, Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't play in this Western Conference Finals, and you still see him jumping up and down and helping his teammates up, and he's super excited. And that's part of that culture that Nico Harrison is talking about. And Jason Kidd has been a big part of that. Luka and Kyrie respect the hell out of him, because he has been a player in the same situation, in the same shoes as both of them are right now. And that speaks volumes. That is another big key, in my opinion, going into the finals, because I personally think Jason Kidd is a much better head coach than Joe Mazzulla.
Absolutely.
And that is a big advantage that the Mavs are going to have in these NBA finals, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You can't say enough about the job that Kidd has done. I know we don't always agree with everything he does, but that's coaching.
That's every coach.
That's coaching. I mean,
yeah. I'll say this. I mean, even though Kidd has his quirks at times, I still believe in him. Even during the tough times, I believe more in Kidd than I would have in Rick Carlisle. And Rick Carlisle's a great coach, but that ran its course, and we saw some of the same things that ended the Indiana Pacers season against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. There were some of the same things that plagued the Mavs
Yep.
back in 2020 and 2021 in the first round against the LA Clippers. So Jason Kidd has been great. Luka Doncic, amazing. Killer instinct. Kyrie Irving, he showed up. The guys remain undefeated following a loss in this postseason. They bounce back, DJ. There is no when they lose, you might as well bank on it. They're coming back the next game and they're taking it to you. And
they take it personally.
So
obviously,
the Mavs finally got over the hump in these Western Conference Finals and won a game one for the first time in the J Kidd era. And we kind of joked at the time, before that happened, we said if the Mavs ever win a game one, they might never lose again. Well, I mean,
not exactly, but almost.
Yeah, not exactly, but they still won the series, and it was the most decisive series of the Kidd era. This is the first time the Mavs have won a series under Kidd in at least 5 games or less. So great stuff going into the finals. The Mavs, no matter what happens, the Mavs are playing their best basketball heading into these finals, and everybody's going to be healthy, and that's all you can ask for. You put the rest up to the basketball gods, and you put your players out there, and may the best team win. So I'm super excited for it. We're going to have so much stuff coming, not just from Mavs Step Back podcast, but also on DallasBasketball.com throughout the next several days leading into the finals. And we are just super happy to have all of you out there coming in and watching and listening and showing y'all support too. We greatly appreciate it. Guys, thank you again. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, where we just crossed the 25,000 subscriber mark a few days ago. So that's incredible. Like when we started this thing, it really took off last summer. Like we had a huge spike last summer, and we've just been gaining momentum since. So that's insane to me. That blows me away. So can't say thank you enough. Appreciate all of you. And be sure to go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as well if you want to enter your name for a chance to win future giveaways, whether that's t-shirts, tickets. Now, we're probably not going to do a ticket giveaway for the finals because those tickets are insanely high. Insanely high. Those tickets are higher than Giraffe. And I'm not going to finish that statement because it's not appropriate for this podcast, but you probably knew where I was going with that. But they are high. They are high. So we're not, but still, we got some new T-shirt ideas on the way too. So I think you're going to enjoy these new T-shirts we're going to be putting out there, as well as some of the ones we already have on our TeePublic store. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your Thursday night. Well, it's actually Friday morning now, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.